Welcome back. The Education Department is reportedly bracing for a record number of matric dropouts. That's due to the number of unaccounted for pupils during last year's final matric exams. It follows a turbulent year for both teachers and school kids during the coronavirus pandemic. Let's unpack this with Basic Education Department spokesperson Mhlanga. As always, great to speak to you. So do we have accurate figures on exactly how many matric pupils who enrolled at the start of 2020 didn't complete the school year?
Good afternoon, Anlie. Not at this point. In fact, I had to step out of a meeting where we are currently discussing exactly that topic. So I think it has come at the right time for you. But there's a debate there between researchers who are arguing on how to calculate that number, because there are many varying factors that could account for where they are. Yes, we know some would have dropped out. There was a lot of fear last year when we were planning to reopen schools after the forced closure. Some parents elected to keep their children at home. Others applied for home education, and others decided to enroll with online learning platforms. So we believe that when schools reopen and the schools are able to account for all the learners, we are going to see the accurate figure, which I think all South Africans are asking for.
So at this stage, we're looking at a figure of roughly 200,000. Does that seem within the relative ballpark of what you're seeing?
Well, yes, those are estimates from researchers, and we can work with that figure. But as I said, the final figure will come much later. And I think the department is also in its own interest to make that figure available to South Africans for decision making. But also for us to be able to embark on a campaign to get kids back to school, because that's the only way that we can account for each and every young person in South Africa. So if we don't have the information, it will become difficult. But the request here is for each and every adult person who sees a young person in the streets during school hours to ask them why they are not at school and to support them as they go back to school. Because the idea is that if everyone is in school, we are therefore able to do a whole range of things. One of them is the school nutrition program, and the other one is to keep them safe from COVID-19, because in school they have the apparatus that are required for them to keep safe. That's the mask and sanitizing and keeping social distancing, and there are compliance officers on site to make sure that it happens indeed. So we believe that there are many, many advantages if all our young people were to go back to school, even those who decided to stay at home because of fear, or those that got discouraged and felt that they had no chance of success. We asked them to please consider their decision, because we still have a chance. The 15th is still a good 2 weeks away, so they still have a chance to really prepare and return to school, even if they dropped out last year.
Elijah, you mentioned a number of factors that contributed to people perhaps dropping out of school: fear, homeschooling. But a lack of money for school fees has also been cited as one of the highest contributors to high school dropout rates. How has the coronavirus pandemic compounded that for many families across the school spectrum?
Well, that particular reason shouldn't be a reason for anyone dropping out, for two reasons. The first one is that a huge majority of our children don't pay fees in schools, and it's only about it's only about 3,500 schools where fees are paid in this country. And even in those schools, there are exemptions that are offered to parents who can no longer afford. So if your circumstances have changed as a result of COVID-19, you present your evidence at the school, you talk to them about the fact that you can't afford anymore, and then you will continue to learn. A child should not be disadvantaged because their parents cannot afford school fees. So that cannot be a reason. Maybe other reasons could hold water, but this one shouldn't, unless people are talking about independent schools where fees are compulsory, because that's the condition for enrolling in those schools, because those schools depend on school fees for their survival.
Unequal access to online learning platforms has widened the education gap severely in the last academic year. Has this been investigated as another possible factor leading to increased dropouts for the 2020 matric class?
Yeah, in fact, in this meeting that I'm currently participating in, the researchers are talking about that. They say online learning has not been effective because it's only about 27% of the people who access it. Even in that number, not a lot are saying it's beneficial. So there are still challenges in that regard. It doesn't close the gap, as most people seem to think. Even those learners who have access to it, they still say that they want to be inside a classroom where they will meet a teacher and interact with the teacher. So, I mean, the department also tried last year, used all sorts of platforms, TV, radio, online, zero-rated sites, and online learning. And the results were not that great. So it shows that as a country, we are not there yet. Yes, it could be a factor in the future, but right now, the best place to be, the best place for learning and teaching is indeed a school where there's still that physical interaction with people. So that's where we are. But of course, the government is working closely with ICT companies and the telecoms to make sure that connectivity is available and that there's reliable connectivity in schools, even in rural areas. And we saw that partnership come alive last year when we were supporting the matrics, and it really worked as a first step towards connecting everyone. But it cannot be the only solution, nor should we blame that for the challenges that we are facing. COVID has brought a new dimension altogether to the way schools have been run.
Elijah, just so that we can understand the numbers, I do understand that you're saying we are yet to get that exact number from the department, and we're happy to wait for those processes to take place. But if you had to compare previous years' dropout rates to what we are seeing and sort of guessing that, estimating the average of about 200,000 this year, what is that increase looking like? Is it drastic?
Yeah. There has been definitely an increase in the dropout because of fear. I think fear was the first thing. Most parents, I still have their messages on my phone where they said, I'm keeping my child till next year. And the children decided to stay at home because they did not trust that enough was going to be done for schools to be opened safely. And it happened. And some of them blamed themselves for having put their children out of school. So we are now waiting to see. In fact, the presentation that has just been done now is indicating what each province is going to be doing to get those kids back to school, because they said that although they are dropping out, they are not coming to school to complete the year 2020. The schools were not going to deregister them or consider them gone. We're going to assume that they are still in the system, although some of them never really showed up. So we hope that all the work that is being done now towards the 15th is going to assist us. So we believe that somewhere at the end of February or the first week of March, we should have a good sense of what is taking place, and we should be able to talk with some confidence in terms of the numbers of those people that did not come back to school last year, and the plans going forward on what the department is going to do to get them back. But as I said, this would need a partnership. It cannot just be education alone. NGOs, civil society, individuals, traditional leadership, religious groups, everyone. We really need to talk to young people about the importance of coming back to school.
Thank you very much for your time. We'll let you get back to that meeting. That was Basic Education Department spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga talking to us about the dropout rate among matrics of 2020.